Channel 127, January 14th. We are 6 days and 137 hours from Donald Trump being gone. This is the last weekend we have to see headlines like about the emotional state of the baby in the White House. Like today, he's angry, he's colicky. Who cares? I am so looking forward to Joe Biden for so many reasons. And one of them is I don't care about the baby in the White House. I want an adult in the White House. You know, today on my show, I'm going to talk about something that I think often is thrown around as a term. It seems inherently hyperbolic, and that is the term fascism. And, you know, at times we've been using the term fascist for Donald Trump in the last few months, and I think it's been accurate, although there's some debate over that. But I think now we have to talk about the GOP as a fascist movement here. And the idea that, you know, it could happen here is true because it's happening. And the GOP has become America's first fascist movement in its infancy. The question is, how far does it go? And let's define fascism so everyone's on the same page here. Because it's not like socialism. It's not like communism. It's not an ideology defined that way. Fascism really is, as Madeleine Albright, the former Secretary of State, wrote in her book, Fascism, A Warning. She wrote, fascism is a process for taking and holding power. She emphasized fascism involves the endorsement and use of violence to achieve political goals and to stay in power. She wrote this in 2019. At the time of 2019, she said she did not call Trump a fascist because he was not using violence at that time. Well, clearly after the insurrection last week that Donald Trump intentionally incited, that's changed. There's no doubt about it. And even experts, such as one at Columbia University, Robert Paxson, who wrote in the past that Trump was not a fascist, said after the coup attempt last week that Trump's incitement of the invasion of the Capitol removed my objection to the fascist label. In fact, he added, the label now seems not just acceptable, but necessary. It is a warning to us. It's a warning. And there are other characteristics of fascism besides just violence, such as pitting people against each other, hypernationalism, trying to cause problems without any solutions, everything Donald Trump has done. But until he embraced violence, many hesitate to call him fascist. Well, we're certainly there. I think we were there a few months ago when he defended his supporters shooting people with paintballs because they were his base. And he defended the Kenosha shooter and QAnon and the Proud Boys because they were supporting him. But now we actually have this. And now we have the GOP embracing it. What I mean by that is that yesterday they had an opportunity to impeach Donald Trump and to make it clear there's no place for violence in American politics. They didn't. Out of 211 members of the House who are Republican, only 10, about 5%, voted to impeach Donald Trump. The rest defended Trump over and over in all different ways. We want unity. We don't like the process, all that kind of stuff. Here's the reality of what's sadly likely going to happen in our country going forward. And it was expressed on my show last week by Malcolm Nance. Everyone knows Malcolm Nance, a great national security expert. See him on MSNBC all the time. What he said point blank, and he said this like over a month ago, then he returned last week after the insurrection and added it. He says, what we expect to see in the future is a Trump insurrection, a Trump insurgency, his exact words, insurgency. And he said, when he says Trump insurgency, he wants you to think Iraq insurgency. But in this case, it's not Saddam Hussein running it, it's Donald Trump. But the same idea. It's the use of violence for political gain. And that's really at its essence what fascism is. It's using violence to acquire and retain power. And we're going to see that. And Malcolm talked point blank about three key groups that are part of the Trump insurgency: the Proud Boys, QAnon, and militia groups. All three love Donald Trump. They were all at the insurrection last week. There's no doubt about it. And, you know, Donald Trump has coddled the Proud Boys. He's praised QAnon. This man has never said anything bad about a militia in his life if they're supporting him. In fact, told people to liberate, knowing in Michigan what could happen. Never denounced the militias with any kind of passion that makes it seem very clear. So these extremist groups that he's been coddling are now grown. They are communicating with each other. They are becoming the insurgency that Malcolm Nance has warned us And to those that think when Trump leaves on January 20th, it all goes away, I hope that's the case. There is a chance. But what we're seeing is more alarming. We're seeing now more FBI warnings that this weekend and going forward, there's more of a risk of right-wing terrorism in this country. Right now, we have 20,000 National Guard troops stationed around our capital, more than in Afghanistan, because of Donald Trump. Because Donald Trump has incited his supporters to attack the capital of the United States of America, prevent the inauguration of Joe Biden. That's why we have our capital surrounded by troops like you were watching it in South America during a coup attempt in the 70s, or even more recently, we are watching it now in North America, in Washington, D.C., thanks to Donald Trump. And here's the thing, experts have documented, and I wrote about it for MSNBC in an article yesterday, that the GOP didn't just get here during Trump. They have been sliding into authoritarianism for years. And authoritarianism does not mean fascism, does not mean violence. Authoritarianism means using undemocratic means to acquire and retain power. When you add violence, that's when it's fascism. But for years, the GOP has been using undemocratic means. For example, voter suppression laws is undemocratic. It makes them more authoritarian on the list. And you can see this great chart where they go down and down and down. Preventing Merrick Garland from being sworn in to the Supreme Court. Another example of authoritarian rule, the undemocratic rule, rejecting our Constitution for purely power. So the GOP's been getting there. In fact, experts say the GOP today, and this was before the insurrection, this was written in November, resembled less an American political party and more of an authoritarian party that you would see in Hungary or Turkey. That was before the violence. Our GOP resembled more akin to the authoritarian parties in Hungary or in Turkey than the United States. That's where they were heading. You add the violence of Donald Trump, and now we're in a situation where you don't have universal denunciation by the GOP. You know what percentage of Republicans said in a poll, a Reuters poll, they support the attack on our Capitol? You probably hope it's 1% or 2%. 22%. That's right, 22%, backed up by another PBS poll. 22% of Republicans at least, because if you're telling a stranger that you support a violent attack on our Capitol, I imagine there's some that might agree with it, but won't tell that pollster they don't know that. But at least 1 in 5 Republicans saw an attack on our Capitol. They saw violence. They saw a police officer who was a military veteran get beaten to death by a Trump supporter with a fire extinguisher, and they still supported it. That's why I say the GOP is becoming America's first fascist movement on U.S. soil. It shouldn't be surprised. We've had socialist movements. We have communist movements. Now we have a fascist movement. The problem is this necessarily requires violence to continue. That's what fascism is about. Think about yesterday's debate before Congress. Republicans, while some did denounce violence in general, how many denounced the Proud Boys? How many denounced QAnon? How many denounced the 22% of the GOP base that they know as well as we do support the violent attack? Zero. Because the GOP wants that. You've got it. Like Lindsey Graham was on Fox News last night, and he said, if you impeach Trump, there'll be violence. The question we must ask now is, was that a warning or was that a threat? Was that a threat? Is the GOP now going to weaponize the military wing of their party to silence us? It's up to them. We'll find out in the short term. But that's what it seems like, because they are not denouncing the extremists in their party. And if they don't, I can assure you they will grow. That will become the GOP. It really will become a fascist movement where we have fighting in the streets every election day. The GOP is at a crossroads. And sadly enough, they're bringing America to a crossroads with them. That's this reality. The question is, will the Republicans do the right thing? And waiting for them to do the right thing is a fool's errand. But you wonder in this case, will they? Or will they allow the GOP to truly become America's first full-blown fascist movement? And we're going to find out the answer not in years from now, in months from now. We really are. If we see a violent insurgency by Trump supporters, we know what we have, and we hope it doesn't happen. So we'll talk about that more on my show tonight. Mary Trump's joining me on the show tonight, so I hope you'll join us. I'm on Sirius XM channel 127, Progress, 6 to 9 p.m. Eastern Time. If you don't subscribe to Sirius XM, go to the website. There's free trials. Check it out. Then join the conversation. Be a part of our family. It's not over when Trump leaves. Want to change America? Got to stay active. You want progress? Stay active. Thanks for tuning in to tonight's preview.